Hey everybody, it's Julian or Flow Graphics here, and this is episode 5 of Game Dev Diaries. So, there's been a bit of a gap sort of between this episode and the last episode, just with basically how much we've done. I'm coming up towards the final weeks of university, of my actual degree. So, like, if you didn't know, I'm currently doing a bachelor's degree in game design, and I've literally only got about 2 weeks left, and this game is our final project. So around 2-3 weeks, and so yeah, we won't. There'll probably only be a couple more of these videos left, as far as the university project's concerned. And then if we choose to take this game further later, there'll obviously be more videos later. But we've done a fair bit because it's sort of coming to crunch time, and we're needing to get a lot done really quickly. So yeah, I'll basically just go through everything we've been doing. I'll try. This episode might be a bit more in depth, so sorry if it's a bit longer, but I'll try to go a bit more in depth about the art, because there's a lot of art that we've done, and then also some coding stuff as well. So I'll start off with all the art and the visual things I've changed first. So you may have noticed some visual differences. So if I go straight away into level 1 here, we've got a nice sort of sun ray coming on the top left hand of the camera, and that's actually parented to the camera. I've done this in a few of the scenes, just to really add a bit to the game. It just looks really nice with this these light beams sort of coming through, and just adds a little bit more detail. And another thing you might have noticed is a couple of like color changes and sort of effects in the actual play window. So if I head over to my main camera, we've got a lot of camera effects here that are actually adding a lot to the game that you probably don't realize. So we've just got a really simple bloom on that just sort of makes those brights pop a little bit more. We've got a really simple contrast enhance, which you can probably notice the tree leaves here, just makes them sort of pop a bit more. We've got a tilt shift. This helps to really center the focus in the center of the screen, and adds a nice blur along the top sort of corners around here. Then we have a fog. This fog's different for all of the scenes, but you can see in scene 1 right now that's making a lot of difference. Sort of actually making this seem like it's up at a high altitude, and there's a bit of sort of fog down below. And then we're using a plugin called Amplify Color, which is a really great plugin where you can basically save a screenshot of the game, do whatever color correction you want to do in Photoshop or something, take in that screenshot again, and it automatically compiles sort of like the tone mapping and all the color correction just automatically from that saved screenshot that you color corrected. So that's an amazing plugin. I couldn't really praise it enough. And then we also have another color plugin which adds some screen space ambient occlusion, which is a fair bit better than the Unity default ambient occlusion. That still needs a little bit of tweaking, but it's looking pretty good at the moment. And then also with the light beams, you can see, if I can get this little elevator here, we've added some in little things like this. So we've got this nice little sort of 3D light coming up out of that, and it's got on the purple one as well. So it looks pretty good for those little sort of effects like those on the lit up objects. But and then another thing actually is that the mesh for the players is different now. So we've got the updated cloak, so it looks a bit better than the old boxy one. And then the physics is relatively the same as the old one. It's still got the same sort of clothy look, and it's got that cute little jiggle to it when you move around. So yeah, we've got the updated meshes as well. And we did a fair bit of play testing as well. So we've builded a lot from the things that we learned from playtesting. Something really simple, which is just a nice little thing, is, for instance, some people found out some people just took a bit too long to actually even realize that this is actually a rotating wall right here, and this can pivot. So a way we can do to basically solve people from not realizing that this pivots is make it obviously look like it's some sort of, it's got like an axle or some sort of pivoting point. So we added in just like a little axle here, which helps. And then as well, we had an idea just to add in like a scrape, like a semicircle scrape mark on the grass here. So it's really nice making a game like this, trying to figure out ways of visually communicating things without having to implicitly just tell the players, because it's a lot nicer, and it feels like the players are actually learning things from themselves when they can figure it out, and you're just sort of hinting them. Even if you really just tell them something really obviously, if you could make it really obvious that this is a rotating door, but not have any text or anything actually telling them, it just looks like a rotating door. which is usually a lot better way to go rather than having to physically tell them or sort of obstruct their gameplay with any prompts or anything like that. So yeah, we've got all those things added as far as visually goes, and a lot of the other levels are a lot more filled out now, looking a lot nicer. So I'll go through all the scenes one by one, and I'll basically explain what's happened through the scenes as we go. So scene 2, you know, we've filled that out more. The lighting's been updated, and we've done a lot of things with this. Scene 2 was level 2, should I say? Sorry, was a really tight level from the start. It had barely any problems, and it's always worked really well, which is really nice. So I think scene 2 or level 2 has probably gone through the least amount of iterations out of all the levels, just because it just works well, and there wasn't really a whole lot of bugs. It was a really nice, straightforward sort of learning experience for the people who are playing it, which was really good. Visually, it's sort of got all the same things that level 1 has, so that there's not a whole much to talk about there. As far as scene 3 goes, or level 3, it's a different story. Obviously, this will be looking a lot different from when you guys last saw it. Better, hopefully. So we've set dressed this level a whole lot more. So this is almost like finished being set dressed. So you can see we've introduced these really cool sort of glowing blocks, which are actually just the original sort of decorative stone block that we had, and then we basically just added in some like the glowing pattern after, which just created a really cool sort of block. And then we've got the dart traps are 100% finished. Actually, I think that I won't show you in this scene because the particles are wrong in this scene. But the dart trap's been worked on, and you can see the scene's just looking a lot better in general. And there was also a lot of things in the scene that's been changed. So you probably would have realized straight away this right-hand side is a lot different from when you last saw it. So this is where we actually introduce the pickupable block, or the throwing block. So I've only got one controller on me, so I'm going to have to try sort of manipulate my other player here to get over there. One thing I will do is quickly just mute the game. So I'll go back into here. I pause that. So if I come around here, you can see now we have this little block on this pedestal here, and it comes up with a little prompt, B to pick up, and then I can pick it up. And there will be a prompt here, but it's just not added in yet. So you can press X to throw, so B to pick up, and then you can just drop it again, and then you can throw it. And basically these blocks can trigger pressure plates and things, so I can throw it over to this pressure plate, and that sort of makes that wall go down. It is a bit of a challenge to actually play this game with one person. It's basically impossible a lot of the times, but you can get through small little puzzles just by pushing around the other player. So we have these sort of doors here which actually stay down, and another thing we've added, which I forgot to say, is originally, if you didn't know, this game is for the console, so it has a controller, and the left stick is movement and rotation, so wherever you move you rotate to that angle. But we've added in a simple little mechanic where the right stick gives just pure rotation, and that actually overrides the rotation of the left stick. So something like this, where I have to throw this block to pretty specific angle, and there's a bit of risk involved. I don't want the block to go in the puddle, or I don't want to fall off the edge into the water here. I can go up against the edge, and I could, be facing the completely wrong direction like that, and then I can just rotate myself around to the exact angle, and it's no problem. So I can jump through that, and then now that sort of plate comes out, and I can do the same thing here. Boom, and then both players can walk across and get their rope, but that's going to be impossible to do with one person. But yeah, I thought it was a really more interactive, fun sort of mechanic, and we actually sort of added this mechanic just on the fly. But it turned to work out really, it worked out really well, and we're really happy with how it's been implemented. And we actually added it to some of the later levels as well, the whole throwing block. So yeah, but it works really nice in this the level 3. And we've also added a bunch of other stuff. Another thing you might have noticed is all these sort of checkpoints and these zones everywhere. So if you know anything about game design, reloading a scene or reloading a level is very intensive, and you only want to do it when you're very first loading that level, and that's it. So when basically, if you played any game, if you're playing Mario, for instance, when you die, well, like Mario could be different because some 2D games and some like infinite runners and things, you physically have to reload the game. But let's just think about Dark Souls, for example. It's probably a better example. When you die in Dark Souls, it doesn't reload the whole level and refresh everything in. It simply turns off your player model, teleports you to a different location, resets everything in the scene, resets where you know, the zombies were, and resets where the boss was and he's spawning, and then plumps you back in and like sets the time scale back to normal. Because it's super inefficient to load everything. So we had to add in a checkpoint system, which basically you can see here in level 1, we have these checkpoints. So this is level 3, I know I said level 1. So we have checkpoints on the right here, we have checkpoints in the middle. So basically whenever you enter one of these zones, that becomes your new checkpoint. So you do the left task, and once you complete that, one of those things is turned off, and then if you die, you can just come back here and that's still turned off, so you can come do this task. And then the second you walk into this trigger volume here, if I was to die doing this puzzle, or if I was to throw the block in the water, I could just show you. Basically, if you were to stuff up any part of the puzzle that would make it impossible to complete, the level would reset and you would spawn back in the zone. So right now, boom, I've walked into this trigger volume, so I would have triggered that respawning, and if I just throw this block into the water there, the level's reset. Something I may add, I didn't set up the respawning for that block, so that's pretty good. The respawning should be set up with the interactable cube over here though. But yeah, we've implemented the mechanics. Some of the scenes are older scenes though, so that's why this wouldn't have worked, because whilst we were doing some version control, a couple of prefabs in the scenes had sort of got overridden. So there's a couple of things that's still falling behind like that, but it takes 2 seconds just to quickly implement it back in and get it working. This movable block should be working as far as it's respawning. I hope so. That's if we can get it to go down there. And then the respawn. And there also is actually like a screen fade for the respawning. I'll take you back into level 1. See there, now you can see the blocks actually there. So there's a fading as well. So if I go back into scene 1 quickly, and I'll just play the game. If I run off the edge here, there's actually a cube missing down there, whoops. If I run off the edge here, you can see the screen actually fades to white, and then it fades back, and then when you fade back, everything's back to normal. So I could push this block, you know, off the edge with me, and that's actually funny, the rope was stuck. But when it comes back, see, the block's back. And this is something we had to do for almost all the assets and all these scenes, because for example, if you push over this rotating door like that, and then you die, the rotating door's going to spawn back in that wrong direction. So we had to implement a script which would reset that door's rotation back to its starting position. So we had to do that for a lot of the assets in our scenes, but it was worth it on something that had to be done. So that is all working, and it's working really well now. It was a bit more difficult for the pick-upable blocks, because these pickup blocks actually have a fair bit of script which has to parent them to the player and do a lot of things. So we had to sort of unparent them from the player and then do these things first before we could then set their transforms. But that's all working. So we're in level 4 now. You can see this is a lot more fleshed out than it was before. So we've got a whole bunch. It took ages to fill out all these rocks, but we've got some rock faces now and some more details. There may have been a couple of slight changes to level 4 since when you guys saw it, but it's basically the same. One of the major changes would have been this pick-upable block. So here it used to be a slightly different puzzle. It used to be the lever, but we felt like the lever was not working too well in that scenario, and we really wanted to keep using this pickup block. So basically, one player gets on this elevator, and the other player triggers the player to go up whilst he holds a pickup block, so then they can bring it up here and throw it onto this platform so they can get through here. So and then we got a spawn zone here, so we have checkpoints through our levels in sort of locations that we saw fit. You know, you don't want to sort of get all the way right to the end of the level and then die and have to start all the way back. So some levels that are a bit harder do have checkpoints now that respawn you sort of halfway through. Obviously the rest of this level 4 still needs to be like set dressed and filled out, but it's still looking a lot better than it was before. And then we also have scene 5. So for scene 5 works 100% mechanically. You guys wouldn't have seen this. You would have seen a very early white box of this scene in the last video, but a lot has changed since then. There's one thing that needs to be changed about this scene. Other than that, it's like mechanically this is 100% what it'll be. So I'll probably just play it for you guys. So we've got a cool little thing here where we have some more seesaws, because we thought the seesaws were a really fun mechanic and we really want to reintroduce them. So we still have the wind tunnels, but if I can try get my my red guy, push him onto the seesaw here. If I step on this thing, you can see a boulder gets pushed by the wind down onto the seesaw, which keeps it down, so then I can get across. I can't go very far with the red guy sort of back here though. It's going to be hard to push him with this wind. Oh, I might just be able to push him. There we go. Whoops. So I might just have to, yeah. So we've got that, and then I might even just move my players wherever they are, player assets. I'll just move them over here quickly. So that's how you get to the first seesaw, and then we've basically got like a double seesaw that lines up to become sort of one ramp. And if I quickly play this now with those player assets in there, I still need to get the pickup block. I forgot about that. So I'll quickly move the pickup block wherever it is. And basically, or what I just clicked on was the respawn for the pickup block. So basically we have to define spawn points for all the objects in our scene now that are non-static, so it means we can pick them up and move them around and they will change. So yeah, all the objects that are non-static now have respawn scripts that respawn them in their desired location every time you die or do anything like that. But I can pick up this block and I can just stand here and just, I'll just place it on there. And you can see this seesaw, you're actually not supposed to jump onto there. This still needs to get set up properly with its colliders. But you can see this moving platform the seesaw is actually like a moving platform as well. So it sort of gets lowered into position, and then we'll just have some blocks underneath the angle I'm right on here, which will just sort of lock it in position like that. So then the players can just walk up and jump up. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then we basically have this sort of big bridge section here where the wind tunnels are coming through, and this has all been reworked. So we've got a nice little puzzle here with the throwing blocks again, and just sort of some more hazards and other things and a hatch. And then we have a pretty cool thing here to do with what are the punch blocks. We're sort of using them in a bit different way. I might just have to turn off maximize on play, where basically you have to run along the tops of them as a flooring to be able to get across. So this is a pretty fun little thing to do because it requires a lot of coordination between you and your partner. But this level's pretty fun. It's a bit more intense than some of the other levels, as you'd want it to be, because it's the 5th level. So this is making taking shape really well. As far as level 6 goes, level 6 is still being sort of developed, so I won't show you that yet. But we basically got the idea and the layout for level 6 100% down. We just need to get the mechanic, sort of like the workable prototype 100% ready, and do a little bit of testing before we start set dressing and finalize the sort of the layout for it. But the game's going along really well. Another thing that I forgot to show you is UI. I didn't have to necessarily go to scene 1 to do that, but we've implemented really simple basic UI. So there's resume and main menu and stuff. I can go to the main menu, and there's a level select. The locked levels are a little bit out of order because I've changed the player preferences and things like that. But basically, what happens now is if you were to load the game on a fresh build, level 1, you would only be able to select level 1, and then once you complete level 1, you'd be able to select level 2, and so on. So it unlocks the levels sequentially as you play the game, like you'd think it would. And then we also added some cheat codes to unlock and lock all the levels, just to help us as developers out a little bit. But yeah, so we've got a very basic UI, which was something we could have just added right at the start, but it was something that we sort of waited to do till now. And obviously we're going to pretty this up and make it look really nice and have all sorts of animations and nice things for the UI, and like have proper options menus and all that. But at the moment we've just got the shell for all of those things implemented, and it works, which is fine. So yeah, as far as like our scripting goes, we've done a lot of just cleanup really. If I showed you guys some of the scripts, you'd probably throw up a bit in your mouth because some of them are pretty messy. Some of them are pretty messy because it's basically just because there was different stages of development through this project where the certain ideas had to change, and we basically just had to do our best to sort of do it on the fly. So we definitely have to go back at the end, or go back after we've sort of finished our set dressing and all the visuals are done, and basically just revise a lot of our coding and just clean it up a bit and do what we can to sort of optimize some of the things that we've done. Everything works, and there's no problems of frame rate, there's no problems of lag or anything. It's a good working game. It runs really smoothly and nice. But it's always nice to just make sure that your code and all your things are nice and clean anyway. especially if you want to keep working on it. So I can show you like a little thing to do with the actually the respawning. So so this is a respawn manager that we implemented. This script is just basically the parent script, and then all the other scripts sort of plug into this. But what it does is we've got a set of bools which basically define what that scene is using. So if it's using an interactable block, if it uses a boulder, if it uses a pickup block or a rotating wall, we can basically just say yes, it's using that. And if it's using a boulder, then we can just plug in the boulder wherever we have a boulder in our scene. So basically, we just have a simple script here. If you didn't know, our rope is actually sort of works in a sort of interesting way. So I'll quickly go to the rope now for the actual players. So the player rope has its actual physics rope here, which is the one doing the actual physics and the collision with the objects. And you can see when I move that, the rope you're looking at doesn't actually move. All it's moving at the moment is just some lights parented to it. What we have is actually a mesh duplicate, which is actually the mesh getting influenced by the rope that you can see, because this actually has a script on it that basically says if the joint either side of me goes too far away, just snap me back into place. And also it's another script with just some constraints so it doesn't get twisted at all. So what we have to do is when we respawn the players, there's a lot of things that we have to turn off and return back on, and the rope is one of those things that is quite difficult to do, because if I go into the rope here, you can see there's all 36 bone joints, and then we have 2 ropes with 36 bone joints. So it's a lot of joints and a lot of moving parts that we all have to turn off and all that stuff. So we've just got a script here. It basically just runs some for loops. If you don't know what a for loop is, it's basically just a statement that keeps checking for like a true or false, and basically you're just running that over a set amount of times. And obviously we're running this for the length of the array, so we basically have arrays that fill up with our bone joints, and then it basically just keeps checking and running through that array and turning off and resetting all of those bone joints together for the arrays, for the ropes. And then we also have everything else. So we need to turn off the renderers for the players. We need to turn off the rope. So this is where we actually turn off the rope. We need to reset the players' transforms and do all that those sort of things. And then we also need to basically do a lot of other things with like the death panel animation and all that sort of stuff. And then as far as the interactable objects resetting, they have their own individual scripts that then plug into this and get triggered by this. So there's sort of a lot to reset and a lot to do, but it's really nice and efficient. And if you ever design in a game, make sure when your player dies, it's definitely not a good thing to reload the entire scene. And as well as to do with lighting, one of the big things that can, even if you do think it's somehow more efficient to reload the scene, even though it's almost never is. Your lighting, if your lighting's not baked, if it's real-time lighting, your lighting will break. But if it is baked lighting, you won't really have a problem. But it depends, because our game right now, we have a combination of baked and baked global illumination as well as some real-time lighting. So you will have problems with your lighting and other than rendering settings resetting sometimes when you actually reload the entire scene, which can be pretty bad. So yeah, we've done a fair bit. Even though I showed you a fair bit today, there's still a lot we've done, but a lot of it's just sort of been nitty-gritty tidying up of objects and things. And we have done some other stuff behind the scenes that I won't show you yet until we get level 6 finished and some other things just finished up. But as far as mechanics and all that goes, we're basically almost finished all of our sort of programming with mechanics and all that sort of stuff. Now it's basically just art assets, sounds, set dressing, doing some more animations and things like that, and UI. And that's basically the home stretch. There's a lot less coding and programming, because basically that's been a huge chunk of our game so far. That's basically up until now, we've always had at least one person dedicated to just doing programming, for whether that be programming for like player controls, or programming for like an interactable block or an elevator, or some other sort of system for the game. There was always programming needed somewhere constantly throughout the game, and you can understand why. But yeah, we're finishing up on that, so it's a lot more art based now. And even with like level 1's probably the closest I can show you to what the game will look like. This is very, very close. There might be a couple little tweaks and a couple little things here and there that will change, but this is basically it. And yeah, I really like the aesthetic of the game. I think it's coming together pretty well. And like I said earlier, we've been doing a lot of testing almost every single week, or every sort of sprint cycle for the game. We have a new build by the end of every week, and we've been trying to test every new build and every new iteration as much as possible, because with that testing, we've found a lot of crucial bugs and a lot of crucial things that have helped us to build it further. So if we hadn't done any testing up until now, the game actually wouldn't be half the game it is now, because we wouldn't have realized all these things that we had to do so early, which is great. I can't stress enough how important testing is, and not just testing once, testing constantly through the whole game's development is very, very, very important. So, sorry for the longer episode. There was a lot to show, and even now there's still more I could show you, but I won't sort of show everything now. I'll leave some for next time. So I'll try get out another video. I'm guessing the next video is just going to be when I've finished the actual game, because we only have 2 weeks left, and I doubt we'll be able to have time to make another video within those 2 last weeks of development. So the next video you will see will basically be our final build of the game. Like, it won't be final, but it will be the build that we are making for university, and it is for our final assessment and all that. So I think we'll decide if we want to complete doing the game after all of our assignments and all that are done. But I do think this game shows a lot of promise, and I'm really, really happy of how it's coming together so far, and it seems like you guys are really enjoying it as well. And I know I said I'll get a bit more in depth of the coding. I only just showed one quick little script, but if you do actually want to see more like coding or scripting, I can possibly show that. It'll just take ages, that's all. So the only things I could really do are just simply show you the scripts if you're into that sort of stuff, and run through the code. It is basically briefly explain what it does, but I'd sort of rather do that when it's a bit more cleaned up. So I can do that, but I'll probably just wait till the next episode, and I can just show you everything. So I hope you enjoyed the video, everyone. Again, sorry for dragging on a bit, but there was a ton of stuff to show, and I couldn't really squeeze it in any quicker. So I hope you all enjoyed. It's been Julian of Flow Graphics here. Have an awesome day, everybody. See ya.